All right, welcome to the May Big Bend Fishing Report. I am Captain Jay Carson. This is Captain Kenny Mullins, and we have got Captain Pat McGriff down here on the end. Pat has joined us a few times before, so we always appreciate Pat coming on. Pat, thanks again for making an appearance for us this month.
Thank you.
Yep. So this is the May Big Bend Fishing Report. This is sponsored by Camp Keaton, which is on 15950 Beach Road in Perry, Florida. Perry, Florida. You can see the phone number right above Kenny's head there, 941-812-1770. They got a few campsites. You want to tell them a little bit about Camp Keaton there, Kenny?
Oh, yes. Camp Keaton is a great place. They have, I believe it's 7 campsites. They have some covered campsites. It's a great place to hang out, family atmosphere. I mean, you feel like family when you stay with them.
Yep. And we want to thank Walter B's. We are here at Walter B's, which is right across from Camp Keaton here tonight. So we are filming at a new location, new internet. So if things are coming through okay, I hope everything's coming through okay for you guys tonight. Let us know if we're having any issues. You can put that up in the comments or the chat, and we'll maybe can address those in the future. But we're going to roll with it for tonight, and we've got some stuff to talk about. So it is May. I think we're supposed to hit some 90-degree daytime temperatures here pretty soon. Water temp's been anywhere from the mid to 70s all the way up to 80 or so last few days.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's kind of been the general trend. We've got some seasonal fish starting to show up, which we can talk more about that here in a little bit. And then we can also talk about, our general conditions for this time of year. All right, Jerry, appreciate it. He said it sounds great. So we're gonna roll with it, Jerry. Thanks for your input there. We got some good stuff to talk about tonight. We're going to give you a good rundown of what's been going on, what we've all three been seeing on the water. I don't know about you guys, but I've been really busy here lately. So
yes,
have a bunch of time on the water. Got give you a really good report. I feel like for what's going down. Talk a little bit about our best bets. We got Pat brought a tackle tip for us tonight as well, and then also we got a little bit of a hot topic that just came out today that we're going to talk about towards the end of the show. So you want to make sure you stick around. We're going to talk about the new redfish regulations that have just come out, been approved by FWC. Get your thoughts, get our thoughts, and talk about those in a little bit. But before we get started, let's kind of give everybody a general rundown. Let's start with trout. So, Pat, you want to lead us off as far as what you've been seeing as far as the trout bite's been last few days, and then what you anticipate for it to be towards the, as we go through May?
Well, May is moving month. These fish all are going to shift out of the shallow waters and move out to 4+ feet of water, and we're already having people catching fish out in 7 and 8 feet of water, which is a little early, but it's just been the trend for the last couple of years. We just seem to skip a late spring or a springtime and go straight into summertime blues. We're missing bait. We had stained water up until about 10 days ago, and then we had, 8 straight days of 15 to 20 knot east winds, which
windy.
blew the dark water, the stain, which is fresh water, and it's lighter than salt water, so it blew it off shore and left us with clear water and a bunch of fish that had been in the dark for 2 months, and they didn't like it. I think they just ran under the umbrella. Basically, they just left with the dark water. A lot of them used it as an ambush point, and I think they left with it or went searching for it because they were hungry, not because they knew there was dark water offshore.
Yeah.
So this May is probably going to be more of the same. You're going to have to adapt, change your colors, go back to clear water baits or clear water catching colors, and probably lose some of your fluorescence and your glow baits and go back to what brought you in the February when the water was clear.
Yeah, we've had a dry spell. Hasn't rained much in the last couple weeks, and that really, really dark water that we had into March, early April has pretty much cleaned up in most places.
Like almost overnight.
Yeah,
it was quick.
I would say that, water clarity for our region is about normal as to what it should be for this time of year, maybe a little darker in some spots.
And a little clearer in some spots.
And a little clearer in some spots. But so let me ask you this, Pat. Is there any chance that as that water clears up, maybe those fish might come back in a little bit if we have some bait show up or
Well,
or
we're
anything?
having some bait show up to the south of Keaton, and some white bait. A couple of friends said they clean fish with pilchard remains in them.
Okay.
So those are the first pilchards I've heard of this year, and I don't think those fish have made it north of Deacle yet. The water, like I said, again was dark, and white bait schools traditionally do not move into the darkness. They seem to have the knowledge they'll be eating. So I think we'll start to see more white bait and more schools of all kind of minnows and hatch show up. And once that happens, there's some fish that will follow them back in. For the first time, Kenny jumped a tarpon. I had a couple of clients jump a tarpon that had their own boats down last week, and I think that's all indicative of this white bait finally making it in here in the clearer water.
Yeah, we saw some schools of white bait in about 8 feet of water this weekend or early this week. What's been odd is I've been seeing big schools of glass minnows in shallow.
Yeah, I've seen those too. Yep.
But nothing on them.
Well, I will say I did one day. I had a morning where I rolled in to a flat that was completely being obliterated by fish, busting on those glass minnows. In about 18 inches of water, there was redfish, trout, ladyfish. Everything was in there just completely. But that was like one time, and I haven't seen
Living the dream, AJ.
I just got lucky. I got super lucky. It was just I was planning on fishing this flat anyway, and as I'm pulling in there, I'm seeing all these splashes in there, and I was thinking, man, look at all those mullet in there. And I roll in there, and it's just these giant pods of glass minnows that everything's blowing up on them. We had a good morning, to say the least. So
I fished 3 giant schools of glass minnows for 4 days in a row. It's like something has to find them.
Yeah.
And nothing.
My experience, unless those glass minnows are actively being busted on, they're not really worth fishing around.
No, I just kept going and checking on them, waiting for them to be busted.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Whenever you see a bait school, it's worth checking out for sure. So anything else we want to add as far as trout? We said they're pushing out. What
I tell you,
any particular baits have been working one over the other?
Yes. Later last week, I was catching some on pinfish, shrimp, mostly shrimp, and this week it's been a struggle, and most of them, like Pat said, I called Pat Monday. I struggled Monday, and I made some rookie mistakes. And called Pat, was talking to him, and he had mentioned about going back to your clear water baits, which I had done, but like I said, I made rookie mistakes. I didn't push out near as far as I should have. I tried to force a bite in the zone that I had been catching them, and the fish pushed out.
Yeah.
And instead of running out a little deeper, I was fishing. I redfished up close, and then I trout fished anywhere from 1.5 feet all the way to 6 feet, and I was so frustrated after my trip. I said, I'm going back out. I loaded right back up, went back out, and started catching them in 8.5 feet of water, throwing a white fluke.
Gotcha. So a lighter color bait.
Lighter color. Yeah. Well, not just lighter. I mean, I was catching some on the watermelon slice, saltwater assassin.
Right.
Some of the more natural colors, but white has definitely been a little better.
Okay. All right. And so I guess that's kind of your trout rundown. What do we look for it to do over the rest of May? Kind of keep a similar trend. I guess those fish are kind of pushed out there already, so there's no. They're not going to do much moving.
There's still some in that 5.5 foot range, but they're scattered.
I will tell you this. The last couple days, I caught some really nice trout in some fairly shallow water on top water.
Big trout.
Big trout, yeah, over 20. Yeah. Not giants, but, they were all over 20.
Yeah, the big trout is still hanging around.
So there's still some big trout up in. They were on some structure where I was fishing for redfish, and they just happened to be in that area that I was fishing for redfish. But again, there are still some big trout in there shallow. But the schooly ones are mainly offshore, right? Yeah. All right, so let's talk a little bit about redfish. The little redfish rundown. I'll start on that one since that's what I've been doing a lot of lately.
Me too.
Man, I don't know right now if there is a better bait right now than a gold spoon. I think of the bunch of redfish I've caught in the last week, 98% of them have come on a Gold Spoon.
I've caught a bunch on Gold Spoon.
So the ones that I like, and I talk about them all the time, the Aqua Dream Living, Captain Mike's. They used to be Captain Mike spoons, but now they're the Aqua Dream spoons. The gold and the copper. And I haven't noticed that one's fishing out fishing the other, and both the 3/8 and 1/4 ounce ones, they're both working about the same. I experiment a little bit to see if I can get more bites on one or the other. And
have you thrown anything else? Other
top
colors?
water?
Other colors? I'm saying.
Those are the only two colors I've thrown.
I have thrown the chartreuse. I've thrown the hot pink. I've thrown the blue crab, and the two best. I mean, I've caught fish on all of them, but copper and the blue crab. The blue crab has actually been my better producer.
Yeah. Well, what's up, Dante? How you doing? I see your comment there. You doing all right tonight? Yes, Mike. Gold Spoon for life. I see you, dude. I see you.
Another bait I've been catching red's pretty good on is it's a 5-inch DOA glow fluke style bait. It's a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
Using a Z-Man redfish eye jig head, and that redfish eye jig head it makes it dart back and forth a little bit more.
Yeah. I think as long as that water temperature stays in the 70s and low 80s, that Gold Spoon's going to be fine. They'll be willing to chase it down. If maybe towards the end of the month we start getting those water temperatures up, then you might have to slow your presentation down on those redfish. But man, they are munching on them right now, and there's a lot of mid to lower slot fish around. Catching a lot of mid to lower slot fish. It's a little harder to find those bigger ones, but we did find day 4 yesterday a school of the big ones. Got lucky.
I'll tell you, it's a little different this year. Typically right now they're stacked.
Yeah, I've been finding some stacked.
There's some stacked. But
I've been finding some.
Not like they typically are this time.
I'm having to bounce a lot of spots,
Right.
cover a lot of spots to catch the numbers that I've been catching.
Right.
Whereas normally this time of year I can pull up to 3 spots and catch as many redfish as I want. I've been having
and that's what I mean by that. This time last year, you could pretty much power pole down and you know where.
Yep.
And just catch them like crazy. Now it's there's still some stacked areas, just a little different.
Right. Yeah. And you're right. It is a little different. I've been having to kind of get outside my comfort zone a little bit and check on some stuff that I haven't fished in a while, or some stuff that I just cover some water.
Yep.
And there's a bunch around.
Oh yeah, bunch.
You just gotta cover a little bit of water to find them. All right, so like we said, Gold Spoon. I will say that they're really starting to hit top water more. I know we've been kind of catching them on top water, but you could go out and just throw top water and be, catch a good number of redfish doing that too if you wanted to.
Jay, how deep of water are you throwing your spoons in?
I'm throwing them in about 3 feet, 2 to 4 feet of water.
That deep?
Yeah,
All
2 to 4 feet. Yep. Right. That two. On those high tides, the higher tides that we get, there's 3-4 feet of water right up on the grass line. So,
yeah, we've had some flood tides lately,
and so those when you fish around those high tides, even if you're fishing right up on the grass line, you're still fishing in 4 feet of water.
Yep.
So and then as the tide falls out, on that low tide, low water, that 2 foot range, 2 to 3 foot range, they'll push out a little bit, and you can look for them in there. All right, what's up, Steve? Steve Bond. Coming in tonight. How you doing, Steve? All right, so that's redfish. Got anything else you guys want to add? Pat, you been catching any redfish?
Very few.
Okay.
Haven't chased them like
Yeah.
before. We caught a lot of big trout last couple trips, and it's hard to leave those fish over 22 inches to go looking for a reel.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and one thing I'll say is I've been away from the structure a little more on these reds. I haven't been targeting as much structure.
Yeah. I got you. I'm not a good drift fisherman. I will admit right now I am a terrible drift fisherman. So I'll leave that to you guys.
I'm not talking about just drifting. I'm
well,
talking
I know, but
power poling down on non-structure.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So that's redfish. Let's transition into our best, which is sponsored by Keaton Beach Bums. 251 Keaton Beach Road here in Perry, Florida, or actually Keaton Beach. Keaton Beach Bums is the stop in Keaton Beach to get everything that you need for a day on the water. Gas, fuel, ice, drinks, food. We talk about this every month. But I can't stress how good the food is in there. You can get a whole rack of ribs in there. Did you know that?
Yes, I have done that.
Yeah, they'll cook a whole rack of ribs. They'll cook you a whole chicken.
They're really good.
Yeah, and all the barbecue is really good in there. It's good food.
I'll tell you something good too about Jared. If there's some tackle that you want, or
Yeah, he does a good job of getting it in there.
yeah, all you have to do is ask. He's going to get it.
Yeah, that's true. I have noticed that, and he's doubled the size of their tackle department. They're fishing. They used to have the one whole wall. You'd walk in, and right there on the right was the whole wall. Yep. Well, now he's got the back wall with all fishing tackle on there too. So
yeah, and
it's as good as anywhere in Perry.
Yeah, anytime I've mentioned something to him about a bait that's working, he says, "I'll get it in."
Yeah,
you can't ask for better.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. So that is Keaton Beach Bums. That is our Best Bet sponsored. Who wants to go first on Best Bet? We didn't talk about this, so this is going to be all off the cuff, off the top of your head. What is your best bet for May? Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
All right, go.
So best bet's going to be pinfish under a popping cork for the remainder of the month. I won't be throwing it if I'm fishing by myself, but it's going to be hard to beat a live pinfish right now.
I guess you're just out there, putting them on a popping cork, huh?
Live, yep.
What size? You like the bigger ones, the small ones? Pat, you want what size pinfish do you like?
Well,
Pat?
you catch them when you're out there catching them. You're getting about 10 to 1 of the little this year's class that's 1.5, 2 inches, and ones you want, which are perfects, are like 3 inches long, and so you don't have that many. So that's if it's 10 to 1 being caught, there's 10 to 1 out there, and those bigger fish are hitting those little bitty ones.
Okay.
I had a client that brought his own toys and had a little storm bait, one of those little swim baits, and it was exactly the size of these smaller pinfish. He caught 3 fish over 22 inches in about an hour on that storm bait underneath the Cajun Thunder.
Okay.
That's pretty indicative of what the hatch, matching the hatch type thing
Sure.
is working.
All right, so Kenny, pinfish under a popping cork
For trout.
Pat, what's your May best bet?
Well, what would I? What,
I know he stole it, right?
He took it. Yeah, this is what I do. But what I would say and what I would add is the depth. I'm going to wrap 4 feet, irregardless of the water changing color, the water getting warmer, the water getting tide. Doesn't matter. The trout are going to spawn. These females that are laden with eggs, and the eggs that I've been getting are French's mustard yellow. They were not ready, and they were not layable in April. So these fish are going to lay on the new moon. That looks like to me, not even the full moon, which is what, next week.
Next week, yeah.
And we're 3 weeks away, and they're going to be out there around 4 feet of water. This seems to be the depth over the years that I've talked with the biologist, and the eggs have a certain coefficient called buoyancy coefficient, which means whether or not they'll sink or rise or whatever. And 4 feet generally holds the salinity that they're after for that buoyancy compensation coefficient. And so 4 feet of water, if I say rapid, I mean I'm going to be from 4.5 to 3.5, 4's in the middle.
Right.
That's what I call wrapping it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to stay out there, and that's where those bigger females are going to be.
Yeah, they're in there just a little bit shallower than some of them schoolies.
If I'm wrong, I'll let you know, and you can put it on next month.
We'll let them know for sure. So my best bet is pretty much going to be what I've been doing for the last 3 weeks, or keep going through most of May. And it's like I said, I've been catching all my fish on a spoon. So my best bet for redfish this month is going to be continue to fish that spoon around structure on high water, and then early and late, and even sometimes in the middle of the day, I'm going to be throwing top water for them as well. So I think that's your best bet for redfish.
Top water covers a lot of ground.
It does.
Give us some specifics.
If I'm looking for fish, I'll throw top water, just because whether or not I get I catch that fish, you'll see a strike, or you'll see a follow. You'll see them pop up.
What bait are you throwing? A stick bait?
Yeah, mostly a stick bait, skitter walk, Rapala skitter walk, and then the other bait I threw the other day was a spook, Zara spook bone one knocker.
That's what I've been throwing.
So and then I was catching both redfish and trout on the bone one knocker.
Okay.
And that was in 2-3 feet of water, pretty shallow on those. I did run into the bigger fish though. The bigger fish, we've been catching, like we said, Kenny, we've been catching a lot of those mid to lower slot fish.
Yep.
Those fish have been in close.
Right.
The bigger fish are holding on some of the I call it offshore structure, but it's the structure that is not right up on the grass line. So if you find some structure,
the outside bars.
Yeah,
the
outside
rocks.
The bigger fish have been holding on those.
The last big red,
Yeah.
I call it was 35 incher, almost 36, and it was in 4.5 feet of water.
Right. Yep. So
At low tide, 4.5 feet of water.
right. Yep. So if you're looking for a good pull, and right now those redfish are so scrappy right now.
Yes, sir.
The water temperature. I had and I will say that I had a client recently. His drag was set kind of light, but he was just about spooled by a 29-inch redfish, and then we caught another one not right there close to it, which is a 32-inch redfish that was just about spooled as well. So they've got a lot of fight in them right now.
Got that TV drag on.
Yeah, he did have the TV drag. That's for sure. You should never let a 29-inch redfish spool you. By the way, that's if you're getting spooled by a 29-inch redfish.
Didn't you say he was 87 years old?
he was an older fella.
That may have had a little bit to do with it too.
Yeah, that
Right.
could have been. I probably should have checked the drag first, but yeah. All right. TJ, I see your comment. We are going to discuss that on the hot topic here in just a minute. Thoughts on an increase in bag limit in the Big Bend area. Yes, we are going to talk about that here in just a second. All right, so that is our May Best Bet, sponsored by Keaton Beach Bums on Keaton Beach Road. If you could get a chance, stop in there and see Jared and Monica. They run that store the right way. Super nice people. Got everything you need.
Excellent staff.
Very good. Yes, absolutely. They're super nice in there. I go in there enough. They pretty much know what I'm getting every time I walk in there.
Yep.
So make sure to stop in there and check them out and get everything that you need for your day on the water. All right. Tackle tip. You can't see it right now, but Pat, if you'll hold up you got some items there in front of you that he is going to talk about, and I'm going to step away from here so I can kind of zoom the camera in a little bit on what Pat's going to talk about here. So go ahead, Pat.
Well, I'm going to talk about soft plastic, some generalizations, and some tips that maybe you're not aware of. First and foremost, probably one of the most obvious things that I do that is outside of the norm is I always take a bait that has glitter. This happens to be electric chicken, which is pink over chartreuse or green with glitter. I always turn the glitter side up on a piece of plastic. I don't care what color it is, what shape it is. I don't care if it's a paddle tail or a fluke, or in this case, a shrimp. I'm going to turn the glitter up because last time I looked, the sun was up, and there's no way for that glitter to flash down. It's only going to flash up. Then number two is I use a screw lock jig head. Anytime I'm throwing a Cajun Thunder or anyone's popping cork, I use the Cajun Thunder because I helped design it, but the original Cajun Thunder. If I'm throwing a cork, the pinfish are always trying to pull the bait and peck at it and get pieces of it. And if you use a standard gotcha jig head, I just use that name because most people know it, a push-on jig head, they're going to pull it down and tear your bait up and cost you a lot of money. If you'll take and use a screw lock jig head that has a spring on it or a screw, whatever you want to call it, the spring, and most people don't know how to use them, so they don't buy them or they don't put them on the boat. It's real simple. You lay the bait against there and see where it's going to exit. Okay, you mark the exit point, and now there's no guesswork. You take the hook and go in the shallow end, the shallow edge, staying shallow, and I'll explain why I'm in it. Come out at the mark that you made, and when you hit the spring, don't try to shove it on there. Bring 1 Alabama, 2 Mississippi, 3 Colorado, 3 turns, and the bait screws itself on and is straight. It is essential that your bait be straight because there are 3 things a shrimp does when it dies. Do you know what they are, Kenny?
I'm afraid to answer.
I caught him dozing. 1, his eyes turn black. 2, he prays. He brings his little legs up and locks them up here. And 3, he tucks his tail up under his chin. So if it's a curled bait, it's a dead bait, and the trout knows it. So you have to learn to rig your bait straight. Now, the reason you stay shallow when you're putting a hook in any plastic is so you'll have more gap, more to catch the fish. If you go down the middle of a big bait, say a fluke, instead of staying shallow with the shaft of the hook, you fill the whole bait up with plastic. I mean the hook up with plastic, and the gap is eaten up by by the bulk of the weight of the plastic. One more tip, and I'll let it get back. I tie a Palomar knot anytime I'm throwing plastic for one reason and one reason only: to control the attitude of the bait or the presentation of the bait as it comes down the water. Whether it's under a cork or you're bouncing, you want this bait to come down and settle and look like a fish or a shrimp. You don't want a loop knot on it so it comes down through the water like this. I've never seen a fish that looks like that. It's a Palomar knot, and after 3 casts, I call this pulling the knot. You put your rod tip up, you flex it, you hold the hook toward your thumb, and then you pull the knot to the back of the jig. Then the next cast, it brings the bait back down naturally. That's it.
Good.
All right, we appreciate that, Pat. That's some good stuff right there. And as we move into, the warmer months, it's going to be pretty much popping cork season. So, especially for trout. So as you are getting ready to fish, May, June, July, and the dreaded month of August, that's something that you need to employ in your arsenal for sure if you don't already.
Absolutely.
All right, so that is our tackle tip. We appreciate that. Thank you, Pat, very much for talking about that. So let's dive into the hot topic. And before we get into it, because I'm sure we're going to get some lively discussion, if you guys got any questions about anything that we have talked about so far today, go ahead and start posting those up there, whether it's what's been working, something that you want us to go back and touch a little bit more in depth on, or, a specific area that you'd like a report from. Even though we may not have fished it, we can usually talk to people in the area, and so we kind of have a pretty good idea what's going on in the closer regions, a little farther east and a little farther west of where we're located. And if you have any reports that you'd like to put up, something that you did recently, caught a big fish, or something that you'd like to share with us in the chat, please do so, and we will get to it and look at it. That leads us into our hot topic, which if you were paying attention at all in the last month or so, FWC came with a proposal, and then the main effect for our region, because it was a multi-regional proposal. It wasn't just the Big Bend area, but there is a couple things in there that are specific for the Big Bend region, and then there's a couple things in there that are more of a broad rule change proposal that they've they had a meeting in Gainesville today, and apparently the proposal was accepted. I don't know. They haven't set a date as to when the regulations go into effect. But to give you a quick rundown on what those regulations are for our area, I think the big one that we'll start with is they have upped the per-person redfish limit from 1 per person to 2 per person. First of all, what are your thoughts on the upping from 1 to 2? And we'll talk about the other big one here in a second. But just let's start with that 1 to 2. Whoever wants to talk about that first, and then we can get in a little bit more debate here as we go.
I see a lot of talk all over social media about increasing to 2. And, I will say there's plenty of redfish out there. But it's not about what's out there now. We need sustainability and we need growth. You hear a lot of people talk about the limits in Louisiana, but what they don't think about is Louisiana has an excellent restocking program that Florida just doesn't have.
It has some in areas. They have restocked in some areas,
right?
But not here.
Not here.
There is
not
no
enough.
restocking here.
No.
Here a little bit further west.
But it's still not at the quantity that Louisiana does.
Right.
For
sure.
And that's we can't. I see so many people trying to compare. Well, look at the limits of Louisiana, and we
it's not
can't
the same
do that.
fishery.
No,
it's not the same fishery.
Just like we're not the same fishery as Tampa Bay, or we're not the same fishery as Mosquito Lagoon.
Right.
And I think the FWC does a fairly decent job at breaking down regions. But the problem with the Big Bend region is how vast it is. And
when their reclassification of the Big Bend region, if you're not familiar with it, it's from basically Crystal River, which is a little south of Homosassa, or actually
a little north of Homosassa.
Well, it's actually it includes Homosassa, so it's
Right.
a little south of the line of delineation is a little south of Homosassa.
Basically, Citrus County line.
Citrus County line, yes, the Citrus County line all the way to the Taylor Wakulla or Jefferson Wakulla line. So the Wakulla line,
Yes.
Wakulla County. So from Citrus County
the
to Wakulla
Citrus Hernando
County,
County line to Wakulla.
right,
Jefferson
is the new Big Bend line of delineation, and so that's the region that they're designating as the Big Bend.
That's not the trout region. Is that the redfish
That's
region?
that's the redfish region. Yes.
Right.
Of course, it's not the same as the Big Bend.
I don't know what is the trout Big Bend
the
region.
trout Big Bend goes from Indian Pass to Anclote.
Oh, so it's a little.
To Anclote
It's
River.
bigger.
Yes.
It's bigger. That's
Yeah.
interesting. They've rezoned it specifically just for redfish, which is a different zone. Which I get. I mean, there's some areas that are west and east of us that have a little bit more of a decline in the redfish population than we do. What you were touching on, though, Kenny, and I'm glad you brought it up, is we, and it's something that you and I talked about. You know, you can go fish a lot of areas in Florida. You can fish a lot of areas in the southeast, and you might not find a better redfish fishery than what we've got here in the Big Bend.
Correct. You know, I fish all over the place,
Right.
a lot, and you know what, the people here that live here and only fish here, they don't see those other areas.
Exactly.
You know, I travel and fish a lot, and I may go down to Anclote, and we may catch, 5 to 10 redfish a day there, and I grew up fishing that area, so
Right.
I do decent.
Yep.
But these people,
To put it in perspective, other than maybe Louisiana, there is not a better red fishery in the southeast.
and that's where I was getting at.
Yeah.
We do have a good red fishery. We do have a good population. Could the population warrant or justify a 2-fish limit? Possibly, but
But is it worth it?
But is it sustainable?
Is it worth it at the loss of the fishery that we have?
Right, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is it sustainable?
Right.
We all remember when it was 2 fish,
Mm-hmm.
not that long ago, and
It wasn't sustainable then.
right, and the increase that we've seen since it went back to 1 fish has been excellent.
Significant. It's
Significant
I mean,
difference.
yes. I mean, you can have some absolutely phenomenal days.
Right. I mean,
for redfish
there's
around
times
here.
I'll have 50 plus redfish trips, 100 redfish in a day.
Yep.
And
So I think what you have to do is you have to think about, the perspective of where else can you go and have that kind of fishing, and really the answer is not too many other places, and we want it
Right.
to stay that way.
Right.
We would like for it, not just as guides, but obviously our business is to help people catch fish, and the more fish there are, the easier that is. But also for people coming into the area, I mean, if you want to come in, like for example, so I've got a buddy of mine who fishes the Indian River Mosquito Lagoon area.
Yep.
He had a client that's been fishing with him for several years, and he had been wanting to catch redfish. And I think over those few years, not that because my buddy's an excellent guide. He is an excellent guide. But if you look at the regulations that they just shut down the red fishery and
Yep.
Indian River Mosquito Lagoon
there's no grass
to
left.
catch and release because of the lack of numbers of fish that they have. So he was like, hey, you got to go up and fish with my buddy Jay up in the Big Bend. And, he came up, fished with me, he caught some redfish, and he was super happy. But the fact that he was able to do that, go from one fishery to another and experience, a great fishery because of that is something that we need to take into consideration moving forward. So that's the one thing. The one thing is they upped the per person limit. Now, what FWC is funny, they try to, they give you a little and then they take some.
Smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, some smoke and mirrors. So the other significant change is they decreased the per vessel limit. It was 8 fish per vessel. And they decreased that to 4 redfish per vessel, and they also took away any chartered or paid trip. They took away captain and crew limit of redfish. So
Now putting all of this in perspective, this is my opinion, one person's opinion. I'm all for taking away the captain and crew limit. I don't have an issue with that at all.
Same.
I will say, the two fish limit with a 4-vessel limit is most people's probably going to lose fish, lose the bags, because unless you have just 2 people, I mean, you're not really gaining anything.
You're not gaining anything. Yeah, yeah.
It's counterintuitive, basically. I mean, it's I think it's going to cancel out itself. That's kind of my position on that. I don't think it's really going to have any major effect.
I don't. My biggest thing, and Pat, Pat, feel free to weigh in on this at any time. Feel free to.
As long as I don't have to use the words FWC, I'll be all right. I honestly think it's absolutely ridiculous and absurd to say, now 2 people can have 4 fish, but 4 people can only have 1 fish apiece, which is 4 fish. Oh, but the captain, you can't have your fish. So why can't, what difference would it make if they left it alone? If I have two clients or you have 2 clients, we were keeping 3 fish. And that's more conservative than 4 fish, but they can't have mine. Who cares? They get 4 fish. Yeah. So now I've got to argue with my clients into not taking 4 fish because I didn't like to give my fish. I rarely did. I would give it if we had a bad trout day.
Right.
But if we had a box of trout, I'm not trying to catch my redfish with my clients 1 each.
Right.
And I rarely did it. So I think it's completely absurd to take the captain's fish away if there's a 2-fish limit and you have 2 clients. I mean, the average charter trip is 2 people. It's not 5.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And Steve says he agrees with you, Kenny. It cancels itself out. In the long
I don't think it's a big deal. I mean,
well, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
We can talk back and forth and argue, but in the end, it's a moot point. I mean, I hate to say it, but the FWC typically does what they want to do. I mean, with the exception of the trout change, where we had some influence in that.
Right.
That's rare, very rare.
Yeah.
So I kind of just accepted it and rolled with it. But at the end of the day, I think it's a moot point.
Yeah. I don't know why you mess with it. Just leave it alone. I get that there's other regions in our area in the state of Florida that it does need to be addressed 100%.
I would rather. I wish that they cared, but they don't. Like Kenny said, it's a done deal. So, we're talking to the trees, but leave it one. They could have left it 1 fish and taken my fish. I wouldn't care, and give us 4 fish. But to increase to 2 is irresponsible for the FWC to do it, and it proves it that once again they're completely out of touch with this region. Yeah. They're never in touch. I've offered for 30 years. I've been in guiding 32 years, and I had the trout wars with them in 2000 and earlier. They tried to change it me every 3 years until 2000, and they left us alone. They went back to 1 fish. Our fishery grew, like Kenny said, and now, as though it's not supposed to, they're going to punish us and give us take more fish out of the system. This rule takes more fish out of the system. It does not add fish to the system, and I'm against that.
Yeah. Yeah, I am for. My position is always going to be for whatever keeps our fishery as good as good as possible,
or better.
Right? Yeah, and because the reality is yes, we fish an area that is very low residential. When you compare it to areas of other areas around the state, it's very rural. It's a lot of wild management area, but it might not always stay like that.
Well, there's another aspect of that too. You go to some of these other areas, for instance, like Crystal River, Tarpon Springs, Tampa Bay.
Right.
There's a lot of spoil islands, mangrove islands. Here, our coast is very two-dimensional.
It is a two-dimensional coast.
So right. I mean, we do have a good fishery, and it's not overpopulated. But due to the way our coastline is, I mean, it can easily be overfished when they stack up.
Yep.
Especially when the trend is a 25-foot deck boat with a 60 to 100-gallon tank and a 300-horsepower motor. These fish have become accessible. The same thing happened in the Southeast in the bass industry when they upgraded the bass boats and gave them a 50-gallon tank instead of a 24-gallon tank, which was the average in the 80s. And all of a sudden, you're harvesting fish from the entire system. And so Kenny can tell you places he used to have to himself. Now, here comes 3 of these boats zooming up here, driving all the way from Steenhatchee or driving all the way from Econfina and cross fishing over into the other ports. There's no sanctuary for these fish to hide in.
Yeah.
And with the ultra skinny boats, the TT boats, the tunnel and towers, these fish are not going to be protected because we have a non-developed coast. The equipment, let alone the GPS, they can go pick the very rock that they caught them off of and cast to it. I mean, there's no taking into account what the technology is now.
Right. Todd Tanner has a question on this subject. He says, would it have been better to stay at 1 per person but up the slot limit?
No.
When you say up the slot limit, Todd, you're just talking about increasing it from the 18-inch minimum to something like 20 inches or something like that, I'm assuming.
I'll tell you, on my boat, I try not to keep. I try to stay in that middle
I'll
slot
tell you,
range.
the best eating redfish is a 20 to 23-inch fish. If you're going to keep a redfish, that's the one. I put the upper slot ones back, and I keep those 20 to 23, the 23, 24-inch fish because there's enough meat on it to make it worthwhile, and they got the, it's still white. And
that's what I was getting at. I tried.
It's good. It's better.
On a tough day, I might keep a 18 or 19-inch, and or a tough day, I might keep a 27. But
right, yeah.
Typically I try to stay in that low to mid 20 range.
Yeah, Todd. Okay, Todd. So Todd says he was talking about increasing the minimum from 18 to higher than that. I don't know that would have that much of an effect.
No, I don't think so.
There's a lot of, we have a really good nursery for redfish. There's a lot of small fish around, which again makes one of our fisheries as good as it is for redfish specifically, and trout for that matter too. All right, so. I don't know, guys. I guess we covered it. We got some other questions to get to here, so if you have any questions about any of this stuff, I'm going to kind of scroll back through some of the questions that I've missed.
I'd seen something while we're on this topic.
Sure.
Someone had mentioned something about the restocking that happened.
Yeah, over in Appalachia.
Yes,
Wakulla County.
That's a great thing.
Yep.
And most of I shouldn't say most. We know about it. We were aware of it.
Yep.
But it still doesn't put a dent in what is needed.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so my buddy TJ Saunders, who guides over kind of near Shell Point and Apalachicola from in that region over there, they did just do a restock of about 20,000 redfish in Wakulla County, but he says there are still fewer fish than he's seen in years.
Yep.
And he also says that the line of delineation is the Wakulla-Franklin County, so Wakulla County is included in the redfish region.
Correct.
So it is in Wakulla as well. So, yeah, I mean, as far as conservation goes, I think we all agree that whatever is going to keep our fishing and keep our customers happy and give them the experiences that they come to us to see and experience, we want to be able to provide that for them for years to come, and whatever is going to be best to do that is what we support.
Yeah, and for me, I'm looking at my kids, their future, it's the next generation.
Yep. All right, so I'm going to come back some of these. There's some more, so we might come back to this topic in. Let's see. First question that I'll tackle, Nate Laskowitz is how I'm going to say that name. Nate, he says use single hook or treble hook on the gold spoon. Always single hook, man. Single hook will save you so much trouble, and you're not going to miss any more fish than single hook with treble. Wouldn't you agree, Kenny?
Yeah.
They make, Johnson makes the treble hook version.
Right.
Sprite.
The Sprite, yeah, but it's.
I don't use it.
I don't use it either.
I will use now. I will say this: I like the Aqua Dream spoons. While we're on that topic,
yeah.
However, as these reds start pushing out, as we get into June, July, even August, I will throw a Johnson because they're heavier.
Yeah, you can get a half-ounce Johnson spoon
Right.
for sure. Yeah, and they don't make that size.
And I know that wasn't a question. It just
Yep.
when you mentioned Johnson, made me think of that.
Yep. All right. So Dante Wimbush asks, what's been the lure of choice lately for everyone on the reds and trout? So we covered that earlier, Dante. So if you want to go back and rewatch the beginning of when we talked about our recent report, go ahead and do that. Steve Bond was in here agreeing with the ribs are good. Laura Jo Rudd says the fried chicken at Keaton Beach Bums is off the chain, which I agree. Steve Bond, we covered water temps, but it's like... mid 70s to 80 right now?
Yes.
Yeah, low 80s, mid 70s,
Yes.
low 80s.
Yes. We'll be climbing fast.
Yeah. Steve Black, I stalk catfish with a fly rod. Any tips? No, man, I can't help you with that one.
I've seen plenty of schools of them out there.
So I caught my first catfish of the year the other day.
I caught some last week.
They're around. Rick Partridge, any snook or cobia?
Kenny?
Yeah, it's a good time to catch snook in certain parts of our region.
For the southern areas,
phenomenal.
for sure. Yeah,
Phenomenal now.
Yeah, I guess you would classify. What's the classification of the Big Bend region anyway? Not FWC's classification. What would you say the Big Bend area is, Pat?
Should be?
Yeah.
Where it bends. Your elbow.
Right.
My wrist is not the
So
big
what are we
bend
talking
of my elbow. It ought to be from Crystal
River
minimum south
to here, right?
to St. Mark's.
Yeah.
Yes,
St.
I agree
Mark's.
with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And it always should have.
Yeah.
But I argued with those people for 20 years
Right.
and just finally gave up.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
And they finally changed the region, and then they wrote the legislation that we needed for the panhandle.
Yeah.
Now, I will say this, the snook, they have been a little late this year as far as stacking up in some of our southern region, as far as stacking up on some of those spoils in big schools. It's been a little late. Even there, the white bait and greenbacks is
Late to the party.
Been a little late to the party.
Yeah.
So a good artificial, obviously top water is always good. Some of the Miradine double XLs and the DOA glow jerk shad, like I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
That 5-inch shad has been a good one for snook.
They really like an erratic action on whatever artificial you're throwing.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and fast. Like
fast.
when I'm throwing a Miradine double XL, I'm cranking that thing.
Yeah.
I'm reeling it.
You can't give them time to think about eating it.
Correct.
Yeah, they gotta. It's got to be a reaction bite for them. There's cobia definitely in the area, Rick. So snook in our southern regions, I would say if you were trying to target anywhere from Cedar Key south to Homosassa or Crystal River, there's pretty good areas for snook down that way. Cobia is pretty much, they're starting to show up.
Yeah.
So you can be on the lookout for them. You know, if you see a big stingray swim by and you're in 4.5, 5 feet of water, check the back of that thing.
Stingray, turtle,
big
seen
shark.
Seen one on manatee.
Yep. So anything like that, be looking for that, and you try to keep something on your boat to tackle that size of a fish too. Because if you got a big cobia and you got them on a trout rod, unless you
got a stout trout rod.
Yeah, unless you got a stout trout rod, you're going to have a tough time with that. TJ, we talked a little bit about those things. I thank you for tuning in tonight, TJ. Yeah, we talked. Steve Bond, it agreed with you, like we said, cancels it out. Kip Carter says that it should be 2 per boat at most. 2 per boat at most. There was somebody up here, where is it? Bob Myers. Bob Myers says, I like the increased bag limit, but it's useless if you have 4 people in the boat. That is correct, Bob. Let me see. We got any questions here?
Hey, Jason.
Todd Tanner with another comment here. He said he heard some talk about taking a few breeders, but I don't know. Curious, but yes, those shorter ones. We don't have. There's some breeders in our area, but we're not predominantly known as a bull red fishery. in the Big Bend. Would
We
you agree with that?
definitely-
I mean,
I
some
agree.
areas
I agree.
there's some fish, but we're not known as a bull red fishery.
No, and it's
Because we
because
don't
of
have any barrier islands.
Right.
We don't
Right.
have the
Yeah,
passes.
the passes. We
Right.
don't have the
They're
passes.
just like tarpon. They
Yep.
get in the current of those passes for their spawn, and we don't have it until you get to St. George that way.
Right. That's exactly right. TJ says there's another restock coming toward Appalach. One is being paid for by Duke Energy, and the other is being funded by the public. I saw that.
That's
TJ.
great.
Yeah, that's
great.
really awesome. Kip Carter says, "What's y'all's thoughts on doing a season on when you can keep redfish like snapper?"
I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah, I don't know that I
Not
agree
at
with the
not at
season
this
either.
point.
Yeah, I don't know that I agree with the season.
I mean, we have a good population.
TJ says thoughts on cobia going to 36 inches. Man, I think what little bit I've read, those are really fast growing fish,
Yes.
and a fish that is not, around 30 inches one year will be in there the next year. And I think obviously they're somewhat pelagic, so there's a lot of fish that are offshore as well. So I don't know that going to 36 inches would make that big a difference.
I don't think it will.
I think that because of the rate at which they grow and they are
36 now?
no, it's at 33. It's still 33 at the fork. He was just at thoughts on going to 36 at the fork.
It is in the works.
Oh, is it? Are they talking about going to 36 at the fork? Is that what it is?
Yes.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. I mean, it's just going to make it harder. I catch a lot of 32, 31-inch fish. A lot of those around. On the flats anyway.
Well,
Yeah.
from talking to other people, it seems to be the problem is more on the East Coast.
Yeah.
East Coast
I would
fishery
think
is
so too. Yeah. Yeah.
more so than the Gulf Coast.
Steve Bond says he picked up a 28-inch snook a week and a half ago. I saw that, Steve, and that was a hell of a redfish you caught that day too.
I tell you what, the snook are definitely migrating quite a bit. I had some folks on the boat this week from South Carolina, and they're starting to catch more snook up there. So
Really?
these fish are
Yeah.
global warming.
Jason Johnson Sr. says update on triple tails. Man, it's been hit and miss. Is that what you're kind of seeing? Like they're around pretty good one day, and then then
they're very tidal.
Yep.
In our area.
Yep.
You got to fish the right tide. The small ones have started moving in. The big ones they're starting to show up. It's a little early still. You may see 20, 30 shorts to each keeper right now, but it's going to get better and better.
right.
As the month goes on. Towards the end of the month, those big ones will be in.
Yeah, and again, some of the western and eastern regions or southern regions of the Big Bend are more prolific as far as keeper size triple tail than where we're fishing out of, which is primarily from, I don't know, what'd you say, Steenhatchee to the Osceola River in that area?
When it comes to triple tail, though,
Yeah.
I do travel.
Yeah. But Pat, you caught a nice triple tail here not too long ago, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
He just was in the wrong place at
the
the
wrong
right time. I was egg beating. I was egg beating out of 2 feet of water. Went by a blue crab trap by a bar and said, "Oh, there he is!" Turned around and made the cast for my client, and he caught him in bean.
That one went home for dinner, right?
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Well, not long after that, we had a phenomenal triple tail day.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Yeah. Rojo Bennett says, thanks for the information and sharing your knowledge. Enjoy watching the show. We appreciate you tuning in, Rojo. Pamela Worth, save your waters, keep it at 1 red. Just leave it the way it was. I don't know why they decided they needed to change it.
Customer satisfaction ratings.
Yes. I don't think no matter what they do, it seems like they always do the wrong thing.
Well, what they
Except for in a couple,
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Only in a few instances can I think of them actually doing the right thing.
Well,
at the
here's
right
my
time.
thing.
They have taken that away. They closed February and left it there for 20 years, and then
they took it away.
they took it away,
Yeah.
and then they screwed us. And they did the same thing. We had 2 reds, and our population crashed. And they went back to 1, and it's wonderful. And they just couldn't leave it alone. They just can't leave well enough alone.
Yep.
Well, I didn't touch on this earlier, but basically, that they increased it to 2 to pacify the people who wanted to be able to keep more, but they decreased the boat limit to pacify the conservationists. and they've really accomplished nothing.
Yeah.
But trying to make all sides happy.
We'll see. Somebody on here earlier said, and I might have skipped over it. I'm pretty sure they said, where was it? He said it'll be back to. Todd Tanner says it'll be back to 1 after a few years. You're probably right.
Probably right.
You're probably right. All right. TJ says that Kobe regulations, and this probably goes with what you were speaking of, regulations are going to mirror the federal waters regulations.
Correct. And a lot of that's because of that.
Yeah.
More East Coast.
Right.
Because they're pelagic.
Right. And TJ also says that he saw a triple tail on the flat off of a structure last week. Yeah, they're around. There's definitely around.
Yeah.
Todd, one last comment there, says, appreciate you guys. Keep up the good work. We appreciate you tuning in, Todd. And if there are no other questions that come in here in the next 2 minutes, we are going to wrap it up within the hour on the nose. So that's perfect. You guys got anything you want to add here before we wrap up? Any thoughts, concerns, anything that we might have missed before we sign off?
No, not I can think of.
We're good? All right. Well, that is going to wrap us up for the month of May. We do have the Big Ben Fishing Report page, which most of you, if you're watching this, you follow it. So please go follow the Big Ben Fishing Report page. Like it, follow it. We'll try to. Kenny and I need to do we got to do a better job of keeping people updated throughout the month.
We do.
Between these shows. So we'll try to do that.
It's been so busy.
It has been busy. This is our busiest time of year. We've both been super busy. Laura Jo Red says, thanks for letting Camp Keaton sponsor this month's episode. Laura, we appreciate your partnership. Thank you for the opportunity to let us work with you.
It keeps us going.
Month. Keeps us going for sure. Kip says, great show. Thank you, Kip, for tuning in. So that's going to wrap us up. I am Captain Jay Carson. This is Captain Kenny Mullins. Pat.
Thank you.
I know that you are, maybe thinking about slowing down a little bit, but if somebody wanted to get in touch with you to go fishing with you, how would they go about doing that?
www.onemorecast.net or my cell, 850-838-7541. Got plenty of dates open in May, and June is real wide open.
Good. All right. And same, Kenny, I know our stuff is on here, but you want to just run down yours real quick as well?
Yes, realepicharters.com. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, everywhere, TikTok, YouTube. Be glad to take you out fishing.
Yeah, and if you're looking to do some sight fishing in our area, whether that's with fly or conventional or looking to up your sight fishing game, you can get in touch with me. I'm Captain Jay Carson, 850-371-1022. Plug and Fly Charters. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, all of the above as well. Laura says, real quick before we sign off, we have availability left for scallop season. I know I've seen some posts on Facebook of people looking for some spots to be during scallop season. So you can call her at 941-812-1770.
Hey, with that said, I have been booking a lot of scallop trips. If you are looking to book a trip, you need to really plan ahead now because people are booking.
Yeah. All right. So that's it. Again, I'm Jay Carson. This is Kenny Mullins, Pat McGriff. We're going to sign off for the night. We will see you all next month in the month of June and talk about some summer fishing and probably some scalloping. So there you go. Have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we will see you guys later.